So this is the beginning of the construction element of the Katana project. We're going to start off by making the blade. This video specifically is how we're going to draw out that blade onto the piece of wood. How do we get that general shape? So just to kind of prime you up here, I've got a freshly finished blade here. You can see the characteristics of it are, of course, the curve, but it also has a nice taper all the way down. It actually goes from 1 1/8 down to 1 inch, and there's actually a taper to the tang as well. You can see the notch in the tang. This is where everything will slide up before being stuck there by the Mekui pen. And you can also see the fuller or bohai. It's also termed a blood groove, although it's not actually blood. And then just looking at this angle of it, you might be able to see that this part of the blade is actually beveled in. It's not just a flat, shorn off. It is actually beveled in, and the tang actually shares that bevel, but is flat right here because because of the notch. It doesn't go all the way over there. So it's almost as if you beveled the entire surface, but this, because it's flat, because it doesn't go all the way, is now flat. So just to get started, what you're going to need is a piece of your strip wood, a tape measure, a pencil, and a straight edge, or just another piece of the strip wood will do too. So we're going to start off. First, you're going to need to know how long your katana is going to be from end of tang to tip. For me, it's going to be, for this tutorial, it's going to be 38 1/2 inches. So first, we're going to measure out 38 1/2 right there. Then we need to also know the middle of this. So half of 38 1/2 is 19 1/4 inch. So now that we have that middle mark, we're actually going to come out from that middle mark 1 inch. Now this will determine how much curve the blade has. If you want more curve, you go wider out. If you want less, you go further, further in. So that's what this mark is important for. So now we're ready to draw out the back half of the curve. And just to kind of show you what we're going to do, you need your straight edge. And I just take it right down to the floor, right? And then I'm actually going to line up the wood, the straight edge, with the edge of your work. And I actually just put my feet right at the end there. And then I just draw back like a bow until you get to this 1 inch mark that you've drawn. You may need to adjust your toes a little bit, and then you just draw out the curve. So it's that easy. You can see now that you've got this without this little hiccup where my thumb was. You can actually see the curve go all the way down. So now we're going to take it right back up, and we're going to go into the other part of it. First off, we need to know where the tang is going to end up, and I'm actually going to put this at 10 1/4 inch. This seems like kind of a funny number to do 10 1/4, but that'll come into play later. And then you just kind of draw a line across. Now the important thing is, when you're measuring for the width of the blade of the sword, and this is actually going to be a total of 1 inch and 1/8, that you measure perpendicular from this line here that you've drawn, not from the edge of the wood. So you don't go straight out from here, you go straight perpendicular to this, so that you have a total of 1 inch and 1/8. Then you go down to the end of your tang, and this you're going to just measure out 1 inch. Same thing from the line and not from the edge of the wood. Then you're going to come all the way to the end, the tip of your sword, and you're going to draw the same 1 inch mark. And there it is. So what that does is that creates a taper from your widest part, which is right at the where the notch will be, and the tang, and that actually creates a taper of 1 1/8 inches down to 1 inch.
So now what we're going to do is just to kind of make sure that we have a nice even taper all the way through. We're going to give ourselves some guide points so that when we pull the wood, the straight edge back again, we can actually connect those lines and make sure it's smooth all the way through. So we're going to kind of guesstimate the halfway point here. It's going to be right about here. And you're going to want to do half of the taper length, or half of the taper distance. So it's 1 1/8, 1 inch. So we need 1/8, 1 inch and 1/16. Then we're going to go half and half again. So right around here. And we're actually going to want half of 1 1/8 and 1 1/16, which is actually going to be 1 inch and 3/32. There's 1 1/8 and 1/32 less is right there. And then the same thing here. Half of this, half of that. It's right about in here. In this case, we want half of between 1 inch and 1/16 and 1 inch, which is going to be 1 inch and 1/32. So there you have it. So now we're going to put the wood here and here. We're going to pull it back so it connects all 3 of these points. And the same here for the tang. So we're going to do that. Come on down here. Alright, so let's start off with the tang. You just put your feet where you need to be. Give it a little bit of pull right in the middle. Then just draw your line. Now, we move on to the blade. And here's your 2 points again. You're going to line up there and there. Put your feet down there. You just want to give it a nice stretch again in the middle. And then kind of manipulate how you want it until you can see point 1, point 2, and the 3rd point right there. So all your points are connected. And then you can draw out your line. Okay, so as you can see it, all 3 points, and then your end and your beginning point, and that's it. Now, to get this tapered as well, but also to have the notch, what we're going to do is we're going to come in about 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch. This is pre-marked already for me, so I know it's 1/8 of an inch in on either side. Then the same down here, 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch. And then it's just the same procedure. There's 1. There's 2. So you can see now you have your notch and your taper. Bring it back up to here. So now you can just kind of see you've got your notch right here. You've got a taper in your tang, and then you've got a nice even taper of a total of 1/8 inch all the way down to the end here. This is the tip of your sword here. So now your question might be, well, how do I get the tip of the sword? So what I do is I measure from where the tip, the very tip of your sword you want, right here, measure down 1 inch and 1/2. So 1.5 inches down, and you just kind of draw a line out. And then what you want to do is that's your distance. I just freehanded that. You may want to be a little more accurate with it. And then just kind of fade it into here. So that's it. So that's pretty much the basic shape of your katana drawn out onto your wood. And you're just going to take that and cut that out with your coping saw. So remember to cut out this notch right here. So don't worry about this line or this line, so that you have it cut in, notch out, and then make sure you cut along your line and then cut your blade out. So that's it for this segment. I'll pick you up again once you've cut this out. and I'll show you how to shape the rest of the blade.